Amid the deadly chaos of zombies, the survivors struggle to stay alive inside a shopping mall, but the danger grows with every moment. Clashes, life or death decisions, and shocking surprises await them. Will they survive, or is death their inevitable fate? Watch the summary now, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. The movie starts in a hospital, where a doctor appears to be in deep confusion. He wonders, what's the need for all these x-rays? Because a man only has a bite on his hand. He then asks the nurse to tell him where the patient went. After checking the system, she discovers that he has been transferred to the intensive care unit, which is odd since a simple bite doesn't require ICU admission. After her shift, the nurse returns home to her husband, Louis. Since they were both tired, they went to bed early without realizing that the TV had stopped airing its usual program due to an urgent news bulletin. The next morning, when she woke up, she saw her neighbor standing outside the room. As she approached her, she was horrified to see blood covering her neighbor's face. The neighbor screamed, "Call an ambulance immediately!" The nurse tried to help her, but suddenly, Vivian bit her on the neck. She ran away and locked Vivian in the hallway while Louis collapsed on the bed. However, Vivian didn't stop trying to attack again. The nurse, terrified, quickly shut the door and went back to check on her husband. She covered his wound with a pillowcase and tried to call emergency services, but the voicemail informed her that all lines were busy. Meanwhile, Vivian kept banging on the door. Louis died on the bed, but suddenly, within a second, he came back to life as a zombie and attacked her. The nurse managed to push him away and grab the car keys before he started destroying the furniture. She ran and hid in the bathroom but accidentally fell into the bathtub. She then tried to open the window, but it was stuck. At that moment, silence fell over the house. She approached the door and called out to her husband, Louis, who responded, saying he had broken the door and entered. She tried to open the window again, and this time, she succeeded. As she tried to escape, Louis tried to grab her, so she kicked him away before jumping out of the house. Outside, people were running in panic. Many houses were burning, and explosions could be seen from a distance. She tried to ask her neighbor for information, but the man told her to stay away and threatened her with his gun. Suddenly, an ambulance hit him, and it drove away without checking on him. When Louis left the house, the nurse quickly got into the car, but Louis jumped on it and started hitting the window. Fortunately, he fell when she began driving. The driving through the city was difficult due to other drivers acting crazily, and sometimes people threw themselves in front of cars asking for help. The radio announcer urged people to stay indoors and close all doors and windows, also informing them that even military bases were no longer safe. Eventually, she reached the main road, where there were more accidents and explosions, along with zombies attacking anyone in sight. She screamed when one of them suddenly opened the door to drag her. She pushed the man away and tried driving again, but amidst the chaos, the car went off-road and hit a tree. While zombies took over the world, the authorities tried to communicate with the press, but they didn't know what had happened or how to handle the situation. People started rioting in the streets, demanding the government take action. The army then entered the cities to try and control both humans and zombies. Hospitals became overcrowded, and buildings collapsed every day. When she woke up, she found a police officer named Kenneth, who asked her to say something to make sure she wasn't a zombie. They walked together and met 3 other survivors, who shot at them until they realized they weren't zombies either. They tried several routes, but they were all full of zombies, so they all agreed to head to the mall. While trying to break the door, some zombies approached, so they shot the lock and managed to get in before closing the door. A zombie tried to grab them, but Kenneth quickly kicked it and shut the door. After that, they turned on the lights, but the phone didn't work. Everyone in the store stayed behind closed doors. They threw something at the window to break it and enter the mall. While she was washing the blood off her from the fountain, they checked the main doors and made sure they were locked. Andrea and Michael volunteered to check the other entrances, while the rest of the group kept watch at the main entrance. At the back exit, Andrea panicked when she saw a zombie pressed against the glass, but fortunately, the glass was shatterproof. In the arcade, Michael grabbed a large hammer from one of the games before heading toward the noises coming from behind the door. Suddenly, a zombie jumped at him and knocked him to the ground, causing the hammer to fall and break. However, he managed to push the zombie off and grabbed the broken handle of the hammer, stabbing it in the head. Back at the main entrance, a zombie appeared and grabbed Loda, who was pregnant. Kenneth shot at the zombie, and it attacked him instead of her. He pushed it toward the fountain, injuring his arm in the process. While they struggled in the water, she grabbed the gun that had fallen from Kenneth and shot the zombie, hitting its shoulder but causing a wound. The 3 of them started running, and the men joined them, heading into the elevator. When they reached the upper floor, they found 3 armed guards blocking their way. After a brief argument, they convinced the guards to let them stay, though their weapons were confiscated. On the television, they watched the chaos, death, and destruction that had swept the world, and they also learned that the only way to kill a zombie was to hit their brains. The officer told them about a safe fort called Pastor, and Kenneth discovered that his brother worked there. Afterward, Andrea took Loda to the bathroom and noticed a small wound on her arm, but she dismissed it as insignificant. While looking for a first aid kit, she tried to calm herself to treat Kenneth's wound. Michael said they needed to seal any weak points in the mall and write a distress signal on the roof in case a helicopter passed by to rescue them. The guards went downstairs and saw a zombie convulsing in the fountain. It was one of the guards they had known before. His comrades had to hit its brain. They then roamed the other stores, killing any zombies they encountered. After a while, the guards threw the zombie corpses off the roof while the group finished writing the distress signal. From this height, they could see the entire city and zombies everywhere. When they heard gunshots, they used binoculars and saw Andy on the roof of a gun store holding a sign that said he was alone. He lowered it and pointed to something in the sky, a helicopter flying overhead. The group started waving, but the helicopter ignored them and flew away. That night, the guards set up the group in a store to prevent them from stealing anything. Michael said they had to move because help wouldn't be coming, but Andrea believed the helicopter would return. Kenneth didn't care about the argument, as his only goal was to get to the pastor fort to find his brother. Meanwhile, the guards watched TV and listened to a preacher saying that the zombies were God's punishment for human sins. The next morning, everyone woke up to the automatic lighting timers in the mall turning on, lighting the place and playing music. All the TV screens were fuzzy, indicating a signal interruption. Guard Terry went to check the control room, and they convinced him to open the store so their group could go to the bathroom. Terry reached the control room and turned off the music before checking the security cameras, discovering that there was a zombie wandering the lower floor. Everyone rushed to the roof to discuss what to do. I suggested they take in any survivors, but CG and Bart refused to trust any stranger. Terry disagreed with his companions, locked the door, and fought with the other guards, disarming them. He then led the men to the mall's basement, while I, along with Loda, left a signal to direct the truck to the back entrance. However, the truck began to reverse and crashed into the building, forcing Andrea and Michael to go out and fight the zombies to help them. They shot at every creature that got close, killing a large number of them until they ran out of ammunition, forcing them to retreat inside. Fortunately, the survivors in the truck were safe. They pushed the truck toward the mall so they could climb it and enter without danger. Once everyone was inside, I announced that I would check them for injuries, including a very sick woman. Kenneth wanted to take the truck and head to the Pasteur Fortress, but Steve and Norman explained that they were from there and that zombies had taken over it. Kenneth was frustrated and went to the roof, where he saw Andy asking for information using another signal. Kenneth told him that the fortress had fallen and that no help was coming. Andy sarcastically responded, which made Kenneth smile despite the situation. While I was treating everyone's injuries, Terry noticed the sick woman who suddenly died. I confirmed her death after checking her pulse and covered her with a sheet. But suddenly, the woman stood up, and everyone ran when they realized she had turned into a zombie. I grabbed a metal rod and stabbed her in the eye when she got too close. After seeing the woman turn, I remembered my husband and told everyone that a zombie bite was the cause of the transformation. Frank was bitten, and I wanted to isolate him, but Michael saw the need to kill him before he turned, and Kenneth agreed with that. I ran to warn Frank and his daughter, Nicole, who begged for mercy, but her pleas were in vain. They gave him a moment to say goodbye, then took him to a locked room. Kenneth waited for him to turn to confirm their theory before shooting him in the head. Days went by, and the group tried to entertain themselves. Kenneth played chess with Andy, writing their moves on the board, while Bart and CG played cards in the basement. I enjoyed watching movies with Michael and Nicole. Terry grew closer to her, and they met under the stars. Steve worked with Monica when he wasn't playing golf on the roof. Sometimes, they hit the ball into zombies outside. Due to the increasing number of zombies at the mall entrance every day, the group wrote their requests on a board, and Andy killed the required zombies to show off his shooting skills. One night, the survivors were having dinner and sharing stories about their lost loved ones. When the power went out, Andrea rushed to check on Loda, who was very sick, and put her to bed. After that, 4 men went to check the generator and found blood on the walls. Something moved in the dark, and the group prepared for an attack, only to discover it was a dog. Michael called to it, and the animal seemed fine, but suddenly, it started barking. A zombie appeared on the roof and jumped on Bart, biting him on the neck. The noise attracted other zombies, who appeared at the end of the hallway. The group ran, but it was too late for Bart, who was left as prey for the zombies. Kenneth and Michael opened a gate to cross, while Steve hit a zombie in the face to close it again. They locked it and rushed to save themselves. They locked the door to be safer before opening fire to kill the zombies trying to climb the gate. There wasn't much ammunition left, and when the zombie fell, it took a part of the gate with it. Michael found a gas pump, so he went and sprayed gasoline on the zombies, then CG threw a match and lit it, causing a huge explosion that burned all the creatures. Meanwhile, Andrea was watching Loda take her last breath, so she kissed her and said goodbye. When she looked at her pregnant belly, she was shocked to see the baby still moving, but she had to go back to Laura when Loda woke up as a zombie. Cautiously, Andrea grabbed a belt and placed it over Loda's mouth so she couldn't bite during the birth. At the same time, Norma realized she hadn't seen Loda for a while, so she went to check on her, but she found Andrea holding a baby while Loda was growling in bed. Norma immediately opened fire to kill Loda, and Andrea, also angry, returned fire. As Norma continued shooting, they killed each other. The rest of the group heard the gunfire and rushed to the room to hear Norma's last words. Terry wanted to hit her, but I assured him she died from the bullets and wouldn't turn. They then looked at the baby and discovered it was a very small zombie, so they had no choice but to kill it. After moving the bodies and fixing the generator, Kenneth told the group that waiting for death was worse than death itself. She said she didn't want to die there, and Michael mentioned he had seen 2 buses in the garage, so they could try to escape. Steve made a joke about sailing a vehicle, but the group realized that traveling to the nearest island was a good idea. Everyone then began using all the tools they found in the mall to reinforce the buses. They spent most of their time working hard. When they took a break, unfortunately, there wasn't much ammo left, but they planned to take Andy since he might have extra weapons. Kenneth told him about the plan using the UV, and Andy responded with hungry, which made Kenneth realize he had lost a lot of weight. The group still needed time to finish modifying the buses, so they had to find a way to send food to Andy, or he wouldn't be able to survive until the escape day. When they remembered that the dog was fine during the attack, they decided to send it with some supplies and a radio. Their theory was confirmed when the dog ran among the zombies without being attacked. But when Andy opened the door, the zombies tried to reach him, so Andy immediately hit them and closed the door again. However, when he grabbed the radio and told the group that Nicole had been bitten, she lost her mind, jumped into the truck, and headed to the weapons store to save the dog. She stopped the truck in front of the door and entered the building while zombies climbed the truck. The group heard Nicole saving the dog through the radio, then looked at the roof of the store and discovered that Andy had turned into a zombie, with the sign stained with blood. But when Andy came toward Nicole, she had to hide to avoid him. Some of the men decided to save Nicole because it was their only chance to get more weapons. Afterward, they entered the sewers after leaving Steve at the door as a guard. After walking for a long time, they emerged in the middle of the street and had to open fire immediately to fend off the zombies. Kenneth managed to kill several enemies, but a zombie grabbed the gun from his hand during the process. The men climbed the truck to reach the other side and entered the store through the dog door, closing it before the zombies could catch up with them. Afterward, they gathered as many weapons as they could and carried them, following the blood trail on the ground until they found Andy knocking on the door. Kenneth apologized to his friend before hitting him in the head. In the end, Nicole was rescued, but the team needed a good plan. CG climbed to the roof and threw a fuel tank, then shot it, causing an explosion. The zombies caught fire, and the team used the distraction to escape into the street, shooting any creatures that hadn't burned until they returned to the sewers. They managed to trap some zombies in a pit, which led to Ticker breaking his leg. CG told the others to keep going while he waited to help Ticker, but the zombies also jumped into the sewers. CG shot some of them before handing the weapons to Ticker, allowing him to drag himself on the ground and fend off the attackers. Unfortunately, there were too many zombies, and they reached Ticker and began eating him. Ticker asked his friend to end his life quickly, so CG shot him in the head before fleeing to catch up with the others. The team reached the mall's door, but Steve wasn't there to open it. Zombies began climbing the stairs, and the men opened fire until Steve appeared to let them in. However, they couldn't close the door again because the zombies were holding onto it. The team had no choice but to flee. When they gathered with the other survivors and the dog, they ran toward the elevator and closed the doors before the zombies could catch up to them. They reached the garage and scolded Steve when they found him there. The team split into 2 groups to ride the 2 buses and escape the mall by smashing the garage doors. The zombies immediately surrounded the buses, making movement difficult. The survivors opened fire from the windows, and Steve used a chainsaw to kill some zombies. With the traffic still heavy and movement slow, CG threw another fuel tank and shot it to create a new explosion, clearing the way. The buses sped through the city, only obstructed by cars. Kenneth saw a zombie hanging onto the bus and suddenly swerved to try and shake it off, causing Glenn with the chainsaw to fall on Monica. The bus lost control and crashed into a wall, flipping onto its side. The other bus returned to help them, and Steve grabbed a gun and refused to help Kenneth. He went out alone and was jumped by a zombie. The other survivors came to save their friend, but I was shocked when I discovered that the chainsaw had killed Monica and Glenn. When Steve, now a zombie, turned to attack her, I shot him in the head. Terry killed the zombie that had boarded the bus, and the gunfire attracted the attention of a large group. The men shot to buy time, while I was in the back trying to get the boat keys from Steve's body. I shot some zombies, and with the help of my friends, I reached the bus. Michael pulled me inside, and CG killed the creatures at the door so they could close it. In the end, the bus sped off at full speed, crashing through the gate to reach the dock. It almost fell into the water but hung on to the edge. The survivors began running toward the boats, but the zombies reached them too. Unfortunately, CG was trapped, so he threw his last fuel tank to eliminate all the enemies and died in the process. The team prepared to leave, but Michael announced that he couldn't go with them because he had been bitten. He said, "Goodbye," pushed the boat to ensure his friend's safety, and then took his own life with a shot to the head. In the end, Kathy, Nicole, Terry, and the dog survived. While they were escaping, they found a boat with a zombie inside and quickly killed it. After many days, when their fuel and food ran out, they began to lose hope. They reached an island and discovered it was also full of zombies. The film ends here, and we will meet again in a new summary. Thank you for watching.